Thank you all for being here today, and welcome to Yom Limud, a magnificent program put on by the Jewish Federation of Greater Houston. It is a tremendous joy and a privilege to be here every year, to be part of this program, and to learn Torah with so many Jews from across the spectrum of our community. And it's really a special treat for me to be here today, so thank you all for coming. The topic today, as stated, is why the Jews, exploring the mystery behind the success and survival of the Jewish people throughout our history. I'm going to try as best as possible to stay on that topic. Okay? So, the real question that always bothers all of us, I'm sure, is if you look at the history of the Jewish people, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense, because we're the only nation that's been targeted the way we've been targeted, with anti-Semitism, with pogroms, with expulsions, with massacres, with holocausts. I mean, you think about the terrible tragedies that befell the Jewish people, and why us? Why have we been the target for 5,778 years since the creation of Adam? We have been targeted. I mean, it's a crazy thing. Now, if you put it into perspective for a second, okay, we are 0.01% of the world's population, and yet we have more than 35% of the Nobel Peace Prizes. The largest percentage of millionaires and billionaires are Jews. The largest percentage of scientists are Jews. The largest percent of white-collar criminals are Jews. I mean, you just think in every demographic you have the Jews always excelling, and yet we're the biggest minority of any population of any people. And yet we've gone through so many challenges. It's such a challenge to understand why we are always the target. Why are we the target? And what can we do about it? So I'm not going to only focus on why we are the chosen ones to be targeted, but what the outcome should be for us. Now, it's very interesting that in less than 2 weeks we'll be observing the tremendous holiday of Purim. And if you look at the Megillah, if you read the Megillah, it is just fascinating as to the backstory behind what's written in the Megillah. Now, if you're familiar, I'll just do a quick summary. It starts off that King Achashverosh decides with his advisors to make a feast of 180 days. Now, I don't know about you, but most feasts don't last 180 days. What was the objective of this feast? There's a story behind it that's not told in the regular words of the Megillah. If you read the Megillah, you won't find this. But if you read the commentaries behind it, they'll point out each word that triggers a whole story. Here's the story that happened. The king, Achashverosh, wanted to have dominance over the entire population. And there's one nation he can't overcome. A nation he was terrified of. And he didn't want to mess with them. So he called his advisors in. He says, what do I do with these Jews? I have an entire kingdom, 128 different provinces and countries that he's controlling everything. Except the one problem, that 0.001% is driving him crazy. How do I get them? So Haman says a great piece of advice. He says, listen, I have history with the Jewish people. You can't win them. You cannot win them unless their God turns against them. If their God turns against them, you have him. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's make a feast. Let's make a feast that will be so tempting they will not be able to withstand. Okay, so the Jewish people we know will say, no, we're not going. It's not kosher. And that's indeed what most of the Jews did. is they said, we're not going to the feast. 180 days. Eventually, it wears you down. Every day they're going to the palace. They have access to the, to all of the royalty. And people are telling me, you should really come. And they have kosher food. And they have kosher wine. And they have everything. And you know what? They're not going to force you to do anything. But the goal, the said intention by Haman, was to get them enticed, to get them, bring them in. And when we bring them in, we'll be able to flip them. And so they did. To many Jews, they flipped. And they said, you know what? It's not that bad. We don't have to stand out. We don't have to be separate. We can assimilate a little bit. It's not the end of the world. And that's when they knew they can get him. Who was their adversary? Mordechai. Right? Mordechai says to the Jewish people, he says, no, we cannot participate because it's all a ploy. It's all a way to get us in. Once we're in, they have us and we have no power. It's almost like Samson. If you remember Samson, what was his strength? Don't cut his hair. You cut his hair, he has no more strength. And once they figured that out, he lost his power. The Jewish people, our strength is keeping to our uniqueness, not losing it. So that is a little bit of the story of Purim. And we'll see soon what the solution to it is and how we avoid having a massacre like Purim was a save, a very last-minute save, because we were able to recall what our said purpose was. What was Egypt? We were slaves in Egypt for 210 years. Why were we in Egypt? Why did we have to go down to begin with? Well, originally because of a famine, but why was there a famine that basically pushed them out of the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, and said, okay, you got to go to Egypt? It was sort of like God is saying, come, let me take you there. Well, there was a purpose for it. Our sages tell us that the reason the Jewish people had to go down to Egypt was because we had to learn what it means to be slaves. We had to learn a very valuable lesson. If you're going to be the chosen people, and we'll see what that means soon. If you're going to be the chosen people, you have to know what it means to be at the bottom of the barrel. You have to know what it means to be a slave. 210 years the Jewish people were enslaved, and slavery means you don't have your own opinion. It doesn't count. We don't care. The Egyptians didn't care about the Jewish opinion. You're our slaves, you do what we tell you. As people who have freedom, freedom means you can choose what you want to do, how you want to spend your day. Right? Every one of you today had a free will, I hope. If you didn't have free will, then let me know. We have a different problem to deal with. But you had a free will to decide what you're going to do with your day today. Am I going to... Is there any good games on even today? They picked a good day. Oh, the Olympics. But it's more tonight. It's more later on, right? But you could choose, do you want to, just relax? Do you want to, or do you want to come learn Torah? Come to a class at Yom Limud. You had a choice. A slave doesn't have a choice. That was the Jewish people for 210 years. We were enslaved, meaning we don't have free will. And that was what we were looking for in our freedom from Egypt, was we were looking to make our own decisions. What's better, if your children decide on their own to go become a doctor, or if you force them to become a doctor? Or we know the ultimate Jewish success is your child becomes a doctor, right? You know what they say. You know what they say. A real successful Jewish family, a doctor, and if it doesn't work, you become a lawyer. And Nebuch, if it's really terrible, they become an accountant. And if all else fails, they may become a rabbi, right? So so when we are enslaved, the biggest challenge we have by being enslaved is we don't have free will. We don't have the ability to decide on our own what we want to do. The Jewish people had to go through that experience in order to become leaders of the world, in order to become the chosen people, so to speak. We need to experience what it means to be enslaved. We need to learn what it means to be sensitive to other people, because we're going to have that responsibility in coming years, and we're going to have to know how to be sensitive, how to be thankful, how to have gratitude, how to have appreciation, how to have sensitivity to people who are less fortunate than we are. We'll get to that more soon. By the way, the Jewish people are the only people to survive the pogroms, to survive all of the terrible tragedies that we have survived. There's no people in the history of the world that have gone through what we've gone through and still have remained a people. Anybody know the secret of that success?
Torah.
Well, it's true. It's true. But they weren't able to learn Torah in Egypt.
They passed it on.
So there are three ingredients that keep us. There are three ingredients that kept us in Egypt. What are those three ingredients? They kept their names. They kept their language. And they kept their wardrobe. Now, what are these three things? What are the three things that they have in common? They're distinguished. It's different. What kept us united is our difference. We are different. However you cut the cake, we're different. And we're going to see soon why it's important for us to be different, but yet why it's important for us to embrace those differences and not... We have to understand we're living in a culture, in a society today which is all-inclusive. We're an inclusion-driven society. That's beautiful. The Jewish people believe in that. We don't believe about being exclusive. We don't believe in being exclusive. But we have certain responsibilities that are different. Right? I always say, what's the difference between an apple and an orange? They're both fruit. But they're different. We know they're different. Men and women are different. Right? They're both human beings. They're both extremely valuable. But they're different. There's not that one is greater than the other. They both have very, very valuable purpose. And just so that you know, the Torah's value for women is far greater than people understand. Women are held on a pedestal in Judaism. The contrary to what many people are believing or are told, that women are put down in Judaism, it's quite the opposite. We can get into that another time. We can dedicate time in other classes. But women are held on a pedestal. The reason why women aren't obligated to certain mitzvahs is not because they're not worthy, God forbid. It's not because they're not worthy, but it's because they don't need those structure the way men do. You ask anyone, who's more spiritual, men or women? Women. Women naturally are inclined to a relationship with God. Men are not. So they're going to be obligated to certain commandments to whip them into shape. And women don't need that. Women have it naturally. So it's not that we're chauvinist in the Torah. Quite the opposite. Women are held on a pedestal. All right, but that's not the topic, so we're going to get back onto the topic. What was Hitler's desire? What was Hitler's desire? Stated desire. To rid the world of the Jewish conscience. He understood that there's a certain value that the Jewish people are bringing to the world, and he wants to rid the world of that value. And that value is called conscience. It's in his book. He wasn't hiding it. He wanted to get rid of this conscience. What do we bring to the table that the nations dislike? Right? He said it was conscience. Okay. So we really have to ask the question is, what's in the Jew? What's within us that is so, despised by the nations of the world? By what, we think about it, it's like, you look at these nations, European nations, I don't even know if there are 10 Jews living in those countries, Liechtenstein and all these other countries, Denmark. How many Jews live in Denmark? Right? And anti-Semitism there is up like 80%. Like, what do we do to you? Right? We produce your cell phones? Okay, but what else? Like, what did we do to deserve all the hatred? What did we do? So we say, I have an idea that I learned from one of my rabbis when I was 17 years old that really changed my whole perspective on life. I told him, I'm sitting in yeshiva and I'm studying Talmud, ancient Aramaic texts. And I'm poring over the page after page, learning the commentaries. And one day I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing here studying these texts? So I went to my rabbi. I'm like, is this like real? Like what? It's like, so he said to me, let me explain something to you. You've got the whole perspective wrong. He says, how many people are there on planet Earth? 6, 7, 8 billion people. How many of them are Jewish? 15, 16 billion? 16 million, sorry. Right, 15, 16 million? How many of them have the great fortune to be studying Torah? How many of them are 17 years old? And we're down to about, 10,000. About 10,000. He said, you're one of those select few who have the privilege to study the Word of God, to study the teachings of God. He said, you should wake up every morning not asking why. You should be waking up every morning dancing on the rooftop. Saying, I'm so fortunate, I'm so blessed to be studying this precious document. Now, anybody here own a luxury car? You can raise your hand, it's fine. All right? So, I think we'd all agree, that one of the luxury cars we can all recognize is the ultimate driving machine, the BMW. Right? The ultimate driving machine. Now, let me ask you a question. Till now, you've been driving a Toyota Corolla, Toyota Camry, one of the simpler cars, and now you get into your ultimate driving machine. You've invested so much of your savings. You've taken so much out of your, just saving up to be able to buy this ultimate driving machine. So you get to the dealership, you pick out your car, and now, guess what? You pull out of the lot, and you're like, that new leather smell, right? It's just, now, when is the first time you're going to pull into that, when is the first time you're going to open up that manual? The first time you have to fill up gas. Because you say to yourself, 1 second, till now, it didn't make a difference what type of fuel I put into my car, but now I'm driving a luxury car. It's a luxury experience. Let me open up the manual and let me see. You open up that manual, you're sitting there at the gas station with the door open, you're like, what do I fill? Mr. BMW says the recommendation is to put super premium unleaded. And you're like, okay, cool. You go to the gas pump and you're like, whoa. This is 80 cents more per gallon. Not per tank, per gallon. You're like, excuse me, Mr. BMW, who do you think you are to tell me what to put into my car? Right, this is my car. And what is Mr. BMW going to respond? Fine. Put whatever you want in there. But guess what? You're not going to have the maximum driving experience. You can put whatever you want. It'll drive. But it's not going to be the same experience. The Torah is the manual. And the Torah tells us exactly what octane to put into our ultimate pleasure machine, our bodies. It gives us the exact details. What to eat, what not to eat. How to sleep, how not to sleep. Every detail you can possibly imagine the Torah goes through. And we think to ourselves, one second, you're telling me to spend more money on kosher meat? Right? And it's $2 more per pound, $3, $5 more per... Who do you think you are? And by the way, I think the greatest gift to that argument is Whole Foods. You pay $9 for a box of cereal. Right? Right? So, because someone said that organic is healthier, right? You're ready to spend the money. But at the Torah, the manual given by God says to eat something healthier. Well, I'm not exactly sure I trust God. Who's the manufacturer of this ultimate pleasure machine? Look at his manual. So think about this for a second. God said to every single nation, I have the manual, I'm ready to release a copy. Who wants it? And everyone said, well, what's in it? You know, the way the joke goes is that, let me get the racist joke out of the way. Why do Jews have big noses? Because air is free. Okay? So, it's true, okay? No, but the real question is, right, all of the nations got the memo. You know, right, just now we had this whole big talk about release the memo, don't release the memo, release the memo. This was the memo God released to the world. And God said, who wants the Torah? And every nation got a chance to look at it and see whether or not they wanted it. You know, the French asked, what's in it? God says, no adultery. Forget it. Right? God, you know, the Muslims asked, what's in it? And God says, thou shalt not steal. Forget it. Right? And each nation was told what was in the Torah, and they're like, no, we're not going to have any part of it. What do the Jewish people say? Again, how much is it, right? And they're like it's free, no problem. We'll take 10 of them, right? And those are the 10 commandments, right? But the truth is that the Jewish people didn't ask what's in it. The Jewish people said, there's more to the Torah than just the rules. There's a relationship. There's a relationship. The Torah is all about a relationship with the Almighty. And what we have special is that by us choosing the Almighty, we said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. We'll listen later. We'll hear the details later. Right now, it's all about the relationship. And God says, that's my people. That's what I want. It's very interesting that we say, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. And what do we say in the blessings when we say the blessings for the Torah? We say Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Amim, that God chose us from all the nations. That's not true. God didn't choose us. We chose Him. Well, it's sort of like, you know, I don't know how these dating shows, they have these shows, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette. I've never watched any of it, thank God. But I assume the way it works is that you get to choose who you're going to choose as your partner for life, hopefully. I guess. Why they're limiting it to 30 or however many. But basically, well, this one has certain qualities over that one. But if someone says, you know, I just want to be the hero, and that's why I want to marry you, I'm not exactly sure. But if it's because I want the relationship, well, that's very different. I want the relationship. God says it's not about the technicalities, what's in it, what's not in it. Well, let's talk about the contract. Let's talk about the agreement. No, you're getting too much into the details. It's more about the relationship. You know, it's very interesting that at the Haggadah, we're going to go a month after Purim, we're all going to be sitting at our Pesach Seders. By the way, the most observed Jewish holiday is the Seder. Make it special for your family. So, we sing the great song of Dayenu. Now, what's the song Dayenu? It's really a phenomenal song. It's basically listing off all of the tremendous deeds and acts that God did for us so graciously. And in each one we say, you know what, if God only gave us this, it would have been perfect. And God only gave us that. And each one adding to all of the amazing gifts that God gave us. Now, one of them doesn't make any sense. If God had only brought us to Mount Sinai and did not give us the Torah, Dayenu. It's the equivalent. Okay, God brought us to Mount Sinai, but didn't give us the Torah, Dayenu. It's enough. Let me ask you a question. I take my wife to the jewelry store, and I don't buy her a diamond ring. Dayenu. It's enough. All right? I took you to the jewelry store. I don't have to buy you one, right? That's ridiculous, right? Why take me to the jewelry store and not buy me something? It's like taking your children to the ice cream store and say, okay, now let's go. Like, what do you mean? We're not going to get ice cream? No, no, no. It's enough that I just took you to the ice cream store. That's not going to work, right? It's enough God took us to Mount Sinai, didn't give us the Torah, it's enough. Our sages say, indeed, it's enough. You know why it's enough? Because we didn't go to Mount Sinai to get the Torah. We went to Mount Sinai to get a relationship. It's all about the relationship. It's not about the Torah. It's not about the mitzvahs. So what are the mitzvahs? What are they? So anybody here go on vacation? Ever? Right? Of course we went on vacation. So what did you come back with that you didn't go with? Souvenirs. Right? You come back, you bring a souvenir, you stick a magnet on your fridge, right? Just like, and every time you see, oh, you remember we went there, it was so beautiful, it was so amazing. And you think about it, what that souvenir brings back the recollection. Today, the modern day souvenir is pictures, right? And we bring back those memories, we look at the pictures and we're like, wow, you remember it was really special, it was so nice, you remember this happened, you remember that happened, and you bring back all of those recollections. The Jewish people said, wow, this is such an amazing experience. How are we going to capture this for eternity? How are we going to recall this experience and bring it back every single day when we're back here in Houston, Texas, 3,300 years later, after the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai? How are we going to relive this experience? God says, you know what? I'm going to give you 613 pieces of memorabilia. I'm going to give you 613 souvenirs. And every time you observe one of these commandments, it brings back that renewal of that relationship, that renewal of that commitment. It's the equivalent of the ring, the wedding band, right? Every time we should be remembered of the commitment of that relationship. Every time we walk into a Jewish home and we see the mezuzah on the right doorpost, it should remind us, you know what? We have a relationship. We have a bond. We have a deep commitment here. Every mitzvah has the ability to bring back that relationship. That's the purpose of a mitzvah. The purpose of a mitzvah is to bring us back into our commitment, into our relationship with the Almighty. So, anybody here familiar with vacuum cleaners? I'm sure you are, right? Now, what is the greatest sound in a vacuum? It's when you have those pretzels that you pick up, right? You know that? You have those crushed pretzels, and you put the vacuum right over it, and you're going right through it. And it's like, ah, the joy, right? Picking up the dirt. Now, if you have just the nozzle, right? You ever had the nozzle and you leave it on the floor for a second, you're trying to move something, and it grabs onto your skirt or onto your pants or onto the tablecloth, and it's just pulling, right? It's sucking for you. What does it want? What does it want? Give me some dirt. Give me something. Feed me. The Jewish soul, the neshama, is a vacuum for spirituality. It wants spirituality. You have to feed it spirituality. And if we don't feed that soul, it goes crazy. And it swings around till it grabs something. And you wonder why all of the extremists are always Jews? That's why. Because they have that vacuum, that soul that's yearning. Fill me up with something. Fill me up with something spiritual. Fill me up with something holy. And if it's not fed with that food that satiates, what happens is it goes bonkers. And it just grabs something until it like maximizes it to the end. It doesn't stop pulling. It constantly wants something. That neshama, that soul that we have within us, never stops yearning. There's nothing that can quench it except one thing. Barati yetzer hara, barati lo Torah tavlin. The Talmud teaches us that God created that pull, that desire, and I created the anecdote. I created the heel for that yearning, and that's Torah study. The only thing that can satiate. Torah study meaning investing in that relationship. That relationship is all our soul wants. It's the relationship with God. That's through Torah study. It's through the observance of mitzvot. It's through doing all the good deeds that the Torah tells us. Right? Tikkun olam is not a new invention. Tikkun olam, we say in our prayers 3 times a day. Litaken olam b'malchut shakai. Is to bring the world to a better place by bringing God into that world. How? Through our good deeds, through our Torah study, through living the way God put in that manual. So, the power of a mitzvah is really exceptional. Now, one thing that every single human being has in common, that we have in common with every single human being, is we're all yearning for one thing. Anybody know what that is? We're all yearning for one thing.
Love.
Anybody else? Pleasure. Pleasure. Love is a pleasure. Food is a pleasure. There are many things that we can slice it off, but at the end of the day, we're all yearning for pleasure. We all want pleasure. Who created this being? Mankind. God. He gave a manual. He says, listen, you're trying to feed yourself with pleasure. Guess what? Here's the manual. Here's the manual that is going to feed your being with that pleasure. All right? That's really what we're looking for. Now, you said love. Love. What is love?
It brings pleasure.
Right, but what is it? What is the definition of love?
Giving yourself.
Giving yourself, I think there are 2 primary definitions of love. Number 1 is finding the virtue in something. So in another human being, you see the potential, you see the greatness, you love it. But there's another definition. Pleasure is knowing that you're connected and not alone. Everyone has something that makes them feel comforted. It's their spouse. Some people have a love for food. The food makes them feel like they're not alone. They have that food there, right? It's a little bit base, but to many people, that's their love. Love means that you feel a connection. The ultimate love, say our sages, the ultimate pleasure. Pleasure, by the way, is a very Jewish concept. We're very into pleasure. There are many religions that are not. Judaism is all about pleasure. And the Talmud goes through a whole conversation whether or not the mitzvahs were given for the sake of pleasure. Right? Think about it. There are so many mitzvahs that just in doing them are pleasure. You do an act of kindness. By the way, it's a Jewish concept. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Loving your fellow like yourself. It's not a Christian idea. They took it from our Torah. Love your fellow like yourself. That's a very deep pleasure. To be able to love someone, to be able to care for someone, to be able to give to someone like you would yourself. Selflessly. That is a pleasure. The ultimate pleasure is knowing your closeness to the Almighty. Knowing that you're never alone. So it's not dependent on humans. It's not dependent on circumstances. The relationship we have with the Almighty is always there. As long as, obviously, we open ourselves to that relationship. But all of Judaism is not a religion. Those of you who may have thought so till now, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Judaism is not a religion. Judaism is a relationship. It's all about the relationship. So, it's very interesting. Research shows that in a relationship, the expression of love between a husband and wife needs to be constantly repeated. You know, they say a story about a couple, they go for therapy, for marriage therapy, and, the therapist talks to the wife first, and she says, I have a big problem. My husband doesn't love me anymore. So he says, that's terrible. In what way do you see that? He says, well, he doesn't say it to me anymore. So they call the husband into the room, and they say to him, is it true you don't say I love you to your wife anymore? He says, listen, When we got married 10 years ago, I told her I love her, and if anything changes, I'll let her know. So, we know that that doesn't work. We need to constantly be reminded of that love. We need to constantly remind our spouse Valentine's Day is not enough. Every single day we need to remind our spouse how much we love them. And to never stop reminding them. Now it's very interesting that the Torah knows this. It's interesting. King David teaches us that we should say 100 blessings a day. 100 blessings a day. Imagine 100 blessings. It's a little obsessive, no? And guess what? We have 3 Amidas that we say morning, afternoon, and evening. Each one with 19 blessings. We're almost done. Right? We're 60 blessings right there. You have the morning blessings, 28 of them. Right? We're almost done. Right? We're about 88 or so. And then you have 12 more. Before we eat, after we eat, after we use the facilities, the restroom. You know, there are different blessings that we can say throughout the day. We wash our hands in the morning. There are many different blessings. Do you know why we say those blessings? The Talmud tells us that one who doesn't say a blessing before experiencing a pleasure is considered a thief. What? I work hard. I pay my taxes. I have my money. I go to the grocery. I buy an apple. I enjoy my apple. And you're telling me now if I don't bless, I stole it? It doesn't make any sense. What are we stealing? We're stealing the opportunity to feel loved. You know, our sages tell us an amazing thing. One of the blessings, one of the after blessings that we make after we eat food is Borei Nefashot. It's very short. It's about 10 words. We say Borei Nefashot Rabot V'Chesuran. God created many, many, many people and their lackings. What are the lackings? We have things that we cannot live without. Like bread and water. Our sages tell us bread and water is the bare minimum. You know, you can't have human beings living on planet Earth and not give them bread and water. That's the bare minimum that God needs to give us. But does God need to give us? It's like your children. Yeah, you have to give them bread and water. You have to give them an opportunity to succeed. But do you have to buy them a Bentley? No. But God gives us that Bentley every day. In what? In luxuries. What are the luxuries? Our sages tell us an apple is a luxury. An orange is a luxury. What is the definition of a luxury? Something you can live without and you absolutely do not need. What are our needs? Bread and water. You know what a luxury is? Your smartphone. You know what a luxury is? Your car. You know what a luxury is? An apple. Not the phone. The phone too. It's incredible they say, what type of phone did Delilah have? A Samsung. Right. It's terrible. I know it's terrible. And what type of phone did Eve have? An apple. Oh, okay. Of course. So, all the way back to creation already, God put it in. Right. But the idea is that we have so many opportunities to feel that connection. If we enjoy from this world without taking that opportunity to make that connection, we're stealing from ourselves the opportunity to feel that love, to feel that relationship, to feel how much God is giving us constantly reminders of that love. So everywhere you turn, you have a refrigerator in your home, guess what? It's a post-it note from God saying, I love you. You have water that comes to your house through a faucet. It's a post-it note from God telling you, I love you. You have a fruit that's so beautiful and so perfect. It's a post-it note from God saying, I love you. All these opportunities to feel a close relationship with God. If we enjoy it and don't make a blessing, meaning recognize the blessing that we have, then you're stealing from yourself the opportunity to feel that relationship. It's all about the relationship. So every mitzvah has the potential. So now, you could look at the commandment to make a blessing on food, and you can say to yourself, you know something, it's a little bit ridiculous. Or, you could say, you know what, this is an opportunity. This mitzvah is an opportunity. In every single mitzvah, if you analyze it, one at a time, you will see the amazing opportunities, the beautiful opportunities we have to build that relationship with the Almighty. It can also be, if we don't look at it in that perspective, you'll be like, oh, oy vey, another mitzvah. Guess what? It's all a matter of perspective. The word pleasure, the word pleasure and the word plague are the same letters in Hebrew alphabet. The word pleasure, oneg, and the word plague is the same letters. Oneg and nega. The same exact letters. But you know what the difference is in how you spell it? Where you put the ayin. What's the ayin? The I. The letter ayin is the same word as ayin, your eye. It all depends on the perspective. Depends how you look at it. You look at it with the proper lens of pleasure as a real pleasure, an authentic pleasure seeker, you'll see the pleasure in it. You look at it with the eye that is a sarcastic eye, a critical eye, it looks to you like a plague. Like, what? I have to do this? I can't do that? Really? I challenge all of you to find one mitzvah that you take from the Torah. There's 613 of them. Pick any one that you want and learn it to its full depth. That means take out the books. You come to the magnificent Torch Library in the Torch Center. It's a stunning library, all English. It's really amazing. Sit down there and take out. There's a book on all the mitzvahs, and it gives the explanation to it and the reasoning behind each mitzvah. Take the challenge and take one mitzvah, not all of them, any one mitzvah, and learn it down to its very depths. Look at it from the source in the Torah. Look at it from the commentaries. Look at it from the Talmud. And it's all brought down there in one place. And you will be on cloud 9, saying to yourself, this is like, how did I know this? It's amazing. I don't know them all. I'm telling you, I don't. From the get-go. Don't think that I have some... The Torah doesn't belong to the rabbis, just by the way. It says, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Moses commanded us the Torah, given to us through Moses from God. Morasha kihilat Yaakov. It is an inheritance for every Jew. It doesn't belong to the rabbis. It doesn't belong to the yeshivas. It belongs to every single Jew. It's yours. It's not mine. It's ours. It belongs to everyone. Take it. Take it for the challenge. Run it. One example. Take one mitzvah in the Torah and tell me it doesn't make sense. It is brilliant beyond our comprehension. Investigate it. It's yours. It's your document. It belongs to you. So we are here for a purpose. Every single one of us here are here for a purpose. And that is why God put us here. He put us here for us to perfect our relationship with Him through our own different challenges that we're going to have. Every one of us was born probably, I assume every one of us was probably even born in a different state. Right? How many of us were born in Texas? All right, a room full of people, 3 people. There we go. All right, very good. Right? The majority of us were probably born in different states. Many of us in different countries. I wasn't born in the United States. Right? I was born in the holy, holy city of Jerusalem. And capital of Israel. Woo! Right? So, it's on my passport, it doesn't say born in Jerusalem, Israel. It says born in Jerusalem. Right? I'm still waiting for the day where they're going to say, come back, we want to change it. And it should be Jerusalem, Israel. But until now, it wasn't recognized as part of Israel's proper capital. Or at least even being part of Israel. Disputed territory, wouldn't get involved, the whole thing. Either way, we're here for a purpose. And as Jewish people, We're here for the purpose to be an example to the world. We are held accountable. So now you're going to ask, one second. You started off earlier saying all the anti-Semitism, pogroms, expulsions, all of those things, for what? Because we're different? So our sages tell us, Haman recognized that if the Jewish people are not where they should be, we can beat them up. That's a blatant example, an open example for all of us to read how we are held accountable to be different, to be an example. We're here to be an example. Be proud of it. Don't hide away of it. Don't shy away. We're here to be different. We're here to be an example. People, I have this all the time. People come to me all over. I remember when I moved to Texas, my mother-in-law said, she said, you know, you got to be careful. There's a lot of anti-Semitism, Bible Belt, this and that. I've never experienced any of it. On the contrary, wherever I go, people stop me and say, you know, God bless you people. You're the chosen people. Now, what does that mean? That means that we, people, the nations of the world look up to us to be an example. We are held to a different standard. Now, let me ask you a question. If I came here today, there's a big lottery going on now, right? There's a big lottery. Someone told me to buy a lottery ticket. Did someone win it? Oh, I hope not, okay? So there's an enormous lottery going on now. I don't know, so $500-600 million. Right, we could do a little bit with that, right? Right? We could do it. All right, so imagine you buy that ticket. I come into the class here today and I say, Gary, you're such a great friend. I wanted to give you a gift, right? Here's a lottery ticket. Good luck. He says, you know, I have everything in the world I can possibly want, right? You know, you take it. He passes it on. The next one says, you know what? I have my wife here right next to me. Everything is great. Passes it on. And everyone keeps passing it around until it reaches Jay, right? And Jay has this ticket. He's holding the ticket. And he says, you know what? I'm just going to hold on to it. I'm not passing it on to anyone. And guess what? Wednesday night, they pull the winning ticket number, and boom, Jay wins $600 million. He wins it all to himself. What are we all going to think? We're not going to exactly have affection and love for Jay. You know what? It was my ticket. We may even have lawsuits against him. You know, we had it. It was really in my hand. I didn't mean it. It was just a joke, right? We didn't want to let go of it, but, you know, we were coerced. We didn't want it. It was like pressure, right? Each one of us are going to say, you know what? We should take part of it. At least split it between us. You'll have enough. And he's like, no, 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 no. This is mine. It's rightfully mine. And goodbye. Right? And what are you going to think? Forever, we're going to say, you know what? He stole that ticket from us. We hate him. As much as he's a nice guy, and he's a great guy, Jay, right? Up till now. Right, till now. And now we're going to say to ourselves, I don't understand. We had that ticket and we gave it up. Should we be part of it? Guess what? That's what the nations of the world are saying. They had that winning ticket. They had the opportunity to accept that manual for maximizing pleasure. They had that ticket. And they said, you know what? We'll pass on it. It says no adultery. We don't understand why, but you know what? We'll pass on it. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not murder. Forget it. Not for me. And they just passed it on. And the Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We'll take it. We're going to keep it. And the nations say, shouldn't we get a part of it? So here's the amazing thing about Judaism. We don't proselytize. We don't missionize. We don't tell people, come to our religion, come to our faith in order to be accepted. No, we say on the contrary. When someone comes to a Jewish court, and thank God I'm not involved with any conversion court or bet din, we just do education in Torch. And anybody who wants to learn is welcome to, from every spectrum, from every place. We have people coming in from all over, thank God, to the amazing Torch Center you have over there, all of the programs that we offer. But when people go to the Bet Din, they say, why would you want to come to Judaism? You can be perfectly accepted as a non-Jew. We have the 7 Noahide laws. You observe those laws and you get perfect heaven. You get it all. why do you, and some people say, I want to. So I just want to leave off with one quick idea. The Midrash tells us that when all of those nations had their tally of whether or not they're going to accept the Torah, they all got, by the way, every nation had a prophet, not only the Jewish people. Every nation had a prophet. And they received that memo from God, who wants the Torah? And they said, you know what, who wants it? Guys, you want it? And they take a vote and 97% say no, 3% say yes, and they're like, sorry, outvoted, goodbye. Our sages tell us those 3% are the future converts. They wanted to accept the Torah, but they were voted out. So those are the future people who are going to join the Jewish people. There are many Jews who have left the faith. Those are the Jews who were the minority who said, we don't want the Torah. There was people who said, no, why should we take this? They were outvoted by those who said yes. Those are the people who converted out. And basically, there's sort of the people coming in, going out. All of those souls, it says, were at Mount Sinai, receiving that relationship. We have a tremendous growth of our people without the missionizing, without the proselytizing, where people are yearning for that relationship. The tremendous gift that we have in the Torah and the tremendous responsibility that we have. In football, the average football is thrown at 63 miles per hour. So if you're standing on that field and that ball hits you, it's going to hurt unless you get in the game and run with the ball. We, as Jewish people, were the chosen people to be on that field. The ball is going to be thrown to you. Get in the game, right? Make a difference. Be proud of the difference. Don't run away from it. And that's why the Jews have always been targeted. We've always been targeted because of our responsibility that we need to live up to. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for
Please fill out your evaluations. I'll take the